Shalom, shalom, mishpacha. Welcome to another edition of the Brit Chadashah Connections. This is Rabbi Yehuda coming at you with Torah Portion, or Parashah, number 30, which is entitled Kedoshim, meaning holiness. And we're going to be reading from Matthew chapter 5, verses 43 through 48, Mark chapter 12, verses 29 through 31, and Luke chapter 10, verses 25 through 37. So the Torah and Haftarah portion all has to do with what is called and what is known in Judaism as the Holiness Code, the Code of Holiness in Leviticus. So that is our theme. So one major theme in practicing holiness is the ability to love your neighbor as yourself, loving your neighbor. In Matthew chapter 5, verses 43 through 48, Yeshua said, "And you've heard that it has been said, Thou shalt love thy neighbor, and hate thine enemy. But I say unto you, love your enemies, and bless them that curse you. Do good to them that hate you, and pray for them which despitefully use you, and persecute you, that ye may be children of your Father which is in heaven. For he makes the sun to rise on the evil and the good. He sendeth rain on the just and the unjust. For if we love them which love you, what reward have ye? Do not even the publicans the same? And if you salute your brethren only, you say shalom aleichem to your brethren only, what do you more than others? Do not even the publicans do this? Be ye therefore perfect or complete, even as your Father in heaven is perfect." So indeed, Yeshua HaMashiach, Yeshua the Messiah, said that the essence of Torah, all 613 commandments, can be boiled down to two. And even in the two, he combined those two into one. They were one and the same, which is loving God and loving your neighbor. Mark chapter 12, verse 29 through 31 said, "And Yeshua answered him, The first of all commandments is, Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God, the Lord is one. And you shall love the Lord thy God with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your mind, and with all your strength. This is the first commandment, the primary commandment, the main commandment. And the second is like, or the second is equal unto the first, namely this, Thou shalt love thy neighbor as thyself. There is none other commandment." See, he puts them as one. It's singular. There's no other commandment greater than these. So these two he combined into one. So, and your neighbor was regarded as your fellow Jew, your fellow Hebrew. However, Yeshua took it a step further and broadened the Jewish definition of the word neighbor to include the Gentiles, the Goyim, the hated Samaritans, the Roman occupiers of Israel at the time. So the word neighbor doesn't just mean somebody who's of your same ethnicity or religion, but he opened it up to all mankind. Because if we're not brothers in Abraham, we're at least brothers in Noah, because all of mankind sprang from Noah and his 3 sons after the flood. So in Matthew chapter 5, Yeshua really hit home and pressed the point of your neighbor as even being those that you are prejudiced against. Mainly, he was driving the point home about the Samaritans. You remember the story of the Good Samaritan? Well, Samaritans were half-breed Jews. They were, hated and regarded as scum of the earth to the full-bred Jews. The Samaritans practiced a form of Judaism, but was slightly different from the mainstream Judaism of the day, and therefore they were hated and despised. But yet in the story of the Good Samaritan, there was this man. Doesn't even say if he was a Jew or a Gentile. Most likely he was a Jew. And how these 3 Jewish men, Levite and all this, and a priest, came by and saw this man on the road who was beaten and robbed and left for dead. And they said, they passed on the other side. I don't want to be ritually unclean, so I can't go to the temple, or I don't want to interrupt my schedule or interrupt my day. His own brother, his own neighbor, as far as Jews are concerned, wouldn't help this guy out. But a Samaritan was a greater neighbor than his Jewish brothers were. This Samaritan, seeing that he was likely a Jew, knowing that Jews hated him, decided to help the guy out. He bound up his wounds, poured oil and wine on his wounds, put him on a donkey, sent him to an inn, and paid for his care while he went off and done his thing. And when he come back, he said, if this man has incurred any other expense than I've paid, I'll pay it when I return. And Yeshua said, that's the guy who's the neighbor. He's being a good neighbor, is the Good Samaritan. So he even painted people that we were prejudiced, that the Jewish people were traditionally prejudiced against, as the good guys. So let's read Luke chapter 10, verses 25 through 37. It says, "And behold, a certain lawyer," in other words, a certain master of Torah scholar, stood up and tempted him, saying, Master, what shall I do to inherit eternal life? And he, Yeshua, said unto him, What is written in the Torah? How readest thou? And he answered and said, Thou shalt love the Lord thy God with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your strength, and with all thy mind, and thy neighbor as thyself. And he said unto him, Thou answerest right. Do this, and you shall live. But he, willing to justify himself, said unto Yeshua, Who is my neighbor? And Yeshua answered him, A certain man went down from Jerusalem to Jericho, and fell among thieves, which stripped him of his raiment, wounded him, and departed, leaving him half dead. And by chance there came a certain priest, a Kohanim, right, a Levite, that way. And he saw him, and he passed on the other side. And likewise a Levite, when he was at that place, came and looked at him, and passed on the other side. But a certain Samaritan, as he journeyed, came where he was, and when he saw him, he had compassion on him, and went to him, and bound his wounds, and poured oil and wine, and set him on his own beast, and brought him to an inn, and took care of him. And on the morrow, when he departed, he took out 2 pence, and gave them to the host, and said to him, Take care of him, and whatever thou spendest more, when I come again I will repay thee. Which now of these 3 thinkest thou was neighbor unto him that fell among the thieves? And he said, He that showed mercy on him. And Yeshua said unto him, Go and do likewise. So the Kohanim and the Levite, who were supposed to be the physical embodiment of the holiness code of Leviticus, because Leviticus was basically the handbook for the priests, right? They weren't being a good neighbor to their fellow Jew. But this Samaritan, who was a half-breed, an outcast, so to speak, despised among Jews, was the true neighbor because he showed mercy and compassion upon this guy. So loving your neighbor is like the whole random acts of kindness thing that we hear so much about, or the paying it forward thing. That's, that type of philosophy that's perpetuated in the world. So you want to boil down the whole meaning of the holiness code of Leviticus. It's basically loving God and loving your neighbor. So thanks for watching. Shabbat Shalom and Shavua Tov.